Robert Garrison was many things: a son, brother, husband, father, grandfather, step-grandfather, great-grandfather, and friend. He was funny, giving of himself, a gentleman in the true sense of the word. Yet of all the things Robert Garrison was, one thing defined him more than anything else. Robert Garrison was sent home from his very first day of school for fighting. My dad was destined to be a Marine. On New Year's Day 2000, Dad sat down with friends and family to record what we had hoped would be the first of many interviews. Sadly, it was not to be. What follows are just a few of his many experiences.
My first fight was in kindergarten, first day of school. I got sent home for fighting because somebody, Alexander Penny Duffy, was breaking up fights all the time, and we had the hell beat out of us quite a bit.
A good start to a military career.
Yeah. So, I see you were going to high school in Reno,
I went to high school in Reno.
and you enlisted right after high school, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, what?
I knew the war was coming, so I figured I was going to get the best education in warfare that I could, and I did.
What year was it?
When the war started,
41?
I got in right the first of 42.
And you enlisted in the Army, right?
No. You know better than that.
I know.
It's tough
Navy,
getting that
Peggy,
Marine
Navy.
Corps. You're better half of the Navy.
Yeah. So you enlisted in the Marines. Where'd you go to boot camp, Dad?
In San Diego.
Want to tell us a little bit about boot camp? What was that like?
Well, the first day was really a dandy. First thing we did, they took all of our clothes away from us. Any personal belongings we had, said they were going to send them home, but they didn't. And it was sort of embarrassing. The first day I was there were 1,700 naked men out in this big parade ground.
Sounds good to me.
And some guy come down with a bucket full of mercurochrome and painted numbers on our chest. I don't remember what my number was, but it was cold. Then they took us in and started giving us shots. I mean, it's sort of like an assembly line. They shoot you in both arms at the same time, you know, and then when you get them good and sore, they told us to bend over and they jabbed one up our butt. Then when we were real sore, then they took us to the quartermaster shed and let us carry buckets full of clothes and stuff like that. And along about 3 in the afternoon, they let us put some clothes on. It was a very interesting proposition.
What was the training? I know you've told me about, you know, how they trained you, and some of the funny things that happened in boot camp.
Well, yeah, I did like you did. I imitated a DI calling cadence.
You don't do that.
And that's not allowed. And then us guys that did that, they had us out there with a bucket overhead running around in a circle, hollering 1, 2, 3, 4, I love the Marine Corps. It was clever. I mean, then I was caught with my hands in my pocket. And so they filled my pockets with sand and sewed them up, and I went 6 weeks with pockets full of sand all sewed up. And that irritates you after a while. Mm-hmm. You get, I think it was the second day in boot camp they lined us up. They always line you up according to height, and then they just reversed guys around and were facing each other, and they said fight. And I think that was supposed to teach you not to worry about getting hurt. And had this guy across from me, he was a pretty good sized fella. He was much bigger than I was. He was about Tom's size, you know. And I didn't want to fight, and he didn't want to fight, and we both got whacked in the head with a swagger stick. So we decided we better fight. It was fun. I mean, we did all right. We lived. But we got good training, that was for sure. I was ROTC, and And I was captain of the rifle team when I went in the Marine Corps. So I was very much used to firing rifles. I knew how to tear my rifle apart and put it back together, so I had that much of a jump on the other boots. And ROTC really helped. But they didn't believe me. They just told you, hell with that, forget it. We'll teach you what we want you to know. And I think they're basic things to make you feel like you're lower than dirt, and then build you the way they want you. And I was 156 pounds when I went in the Marine Corps, and I was 135 when I got out of boot camp. Then I went right back up to 156, is what I weigh now. I went to the rifle range in the Marine Corps. I fired a possible score, 250 out of 250. And when I wrote home and told Dad that, and he told him over at the school, and in the school paper they said he only fired 250 out of 250. And
Was that a very common thing?
but to shoot a possible score, it's not very common in the Marine Corps. When I did it, I was only about the 14th guy since 1903 that did it.
Oh, I see.
But I won some money at it because everybody took up a pool for the highest score out of on the rifle range at that time. And I got the pool minus 10% for Navy relief. I sent it home, Dad put it in the bank, and I guess they used it during the war. Well, it's all right.
Yeah.
Well, and they gave you a bucket when you were in boot camp, and in that bucket you had a scrub brush and some soap and toothpaste, razor. And they charged you $6 for the bucket on your PX fund, and $6 for insurance, $6.40 for insurance, and only made $21 a month, so it didn't leave much.
What type of rifle were you using?
1903 Springfield.
Remember the serial number?
Well, my sniper rifle was 1888, the one I used in boot camp. I don't remember the number. I remember my number, I mean, it's 368042. I guess now they use the Social Security number for all
Yeah.
that. My drill instructor was named O'Brien. He was a nice guy, but I would like to have killed him. I think that goes with every boot.
No kidding.
The fact that I shot a perfect score, they assigned me to Scouts and Sniper School. I applied for armor school. I thought, boy, if I had a good score like that, I could get to be an armorer. And I didn't. I applied for it, and I didn't hear anything about it until I got to Pearl Harbor. And then I got a letter from them saying that I'd been accepted into armor school, providing I was within the continental limits of the United States, which I wasn't. And I couldn't get back.
But where was the Scouts and Sniper School?
Greens Farm. There's a place called Greens Farm. It was out around Kearney Mesa, somewhere down there. And all the people that went through that school, we had intensive rifle work. But you had two teams, a red team and a blue team. Every other day, you were an aggressor. And the day you weren't an aggressor, you could be attacked anywhere. The aggressor group attacked you anywhere you were. You might have somebody jump on your neck while you're in the chow line. Anywhere, even at night during sleeping time, you might be attacked. And that would just teach you to be alert a lot. Went to camouflage school. I used to dress up in camouflage gear and then lay out in the hills, and people had to try and see if they could find you. And if you were spotted too much, you had to work more on your camouflage. But they'd march us into this draw and put everybody One team would be on the hills in camouflage, and another 5 people had to see if they could see it. And it was interesting, it was a lot of fun. But we spent, I guess, about 3 hours a day just shooting rifles. And they took our sniper rifle, they fit the rifle with the man. I mean, the stock and everything was cut to fit the person. And the scope was, all the optical corrections for your eyes were built right into the scope. They sent us back to the arsenal to do that. That was a real good deal. I liked that. Just shoot all day and shoot all anytime.
You were good at it, so.
Well, yeah,
How
I
were
was
you
good.
How were you at camouflage?
Well, I'm here.
Obviously you did well.
Yeah. No, I got spotted a time or two, but mostly if you ever got spotted is the fact that you moved. Because your eye will pick up motion quicker than it'll pick up a change in color or something.
And weren't you telling me that the guys with, that were colorblind did better at spotting?
Yes, colorblind people can pick out camouflage, artificial camouflage, just boom like that. And yet that was a cause for rejection in the draft. You'd think they'd use a lot of those guys, but we found out that the camouflage, or a colorblind person could pick out artificial camouflage real quick.
Let's see, you were telling me one time that you did the Thompson submachine gun course, and then I'd like to hear about the knife fighting school.
Yeah, well, we did the Thompson submachine gun course, and they had a closed course, which was indoor course, in building fighting. You had 50 rounds of ammunition, and you had 24 targets, and you had to put 2 rounds in each target, at least. And if you came out where you ran out of ammunition, you didn't pass the course. You had to work at it until you passed the course. And I went through the first time. I come out with 2 rounds left, so I did all right. And the targets, you had to pick them in their readiness, you know, the ones that were the most dangerous to you when you went into a room. Like if there was a man with a weapon aimed at you, you had to take him first. Somebody was still laying in the bunk, he would be last, you know. And so you had a certain way you had to pick them up. You get the one that was most ready to get him first, so sometimes you hit a target here and one there and then one back here, you know. It was interesting. And then I was trained in knife fighting. They trained at Anthony J. Drexel Biddle. He was a colonel in the Marine Corps, and he was an expert, a world expert on knife fighting. And they trained at his home. He had a training area at his home. We had a barracks there, that was in Philadelphia. And he was quite a guy. He had like a hothouse type building there, and that was his pet room. He had crocodiles as pets. Had them in like aquariums in the house, all open, of course. But he was an expert at knife fighting. It took you 2 weeks to teach you how to throw a knife, and then told you if you threw it away, you were stupid. Because, I mean, you might be throwing your life away. So I never ever threw a knife in combat. In fact, Peggy's got the knife I had.
Yeah.
So I didn't throw it away. I give it away.
Yeah, you did. Well, did you have any other type of training before you went overseas, or?
Well, we had Greens Farm training. We had our final course on that. We made a forced march from San Diego to Los Angeles, which is 112 miles. And our mission was to secure Fort MacArthur. In fact, we had to just secure the commanding officer.
That's an Army base?
Yeah, it's an Army base up in San Pedro. And we went up there and we had to do a thing without being spotted. And we got into Fort MacArthur and we captured the commanding officer there. He was a colonel, I think. And we called San Diego, called back to the base on his phone. And I would imagine they had a big security shakeup on that fort. And then we had to walk back. So we did 225 miles of walking. But we didn't even get spotted on the way up. Going back, we didn't really pay much attention to it, but I don't think we were turned in or anything. We made it. And then
How long did that take you to walk that far?
when we were a couple of days, we walked right along. Most of the time we were right on the beach, sometimes in the hills. But it wasn't like it is now. I mean, there was a lot of empty country down there then. And I killed my first man while I was in boot camp. Poor bugger. We were doing the bayonet course, and this kid, his name was Levy. I guess he had cat fever. They used to call that walking pneumonia or some darn thing. And he felt faint, and he staggered in behind one of the dummies and leaned up against the dummy, and I was the next man through, and where the range officer was, didn't see it. I jabbed the dummy and I jabbed Levy. He didn't make it, he died. I felt bad about it. Went overseas from San Francisco. They took us up there and put us on this brand new ship. It was called the African Comet. And then the convoy could only go about 5 miles an hour because they had to go to the slowest ship in the bunch. I thought it was really great though. We got to go to the Hawaiian Islands. Got out there and we didn't get a chance to see anything. Crystal work unloading ships and loading ammo and stuff like that.
When was that?
Right after I graduated from boot camp.
Yeah, was that before Pearl Harbor?
Oh no,
That was after Pearl Harbor?
we were doing that up there. Honolulu was just a little dumpy town then.
Did you get a chance to look at Pearl Harbor with the wreck still in the harbor?
Oh yeah, first time I went into the harbor, Arizona was still smoking. What was above water, I mean, there was a lot of it above water, they've cut all that away. And a lot of the battleships were still upside down in there. It was a big mess. In the North Island, what is it, Naval Air Station there, North Island,
Henderson Field, is it?
or Henderson Field is in
Oh,
Guadalcanal.
that's right, yeah.
Fort Island?
Fort Island.
Fort Island, right.
I keep getting it mixed up with North Island and San Diego. But had a lot of wreckage on it, and they had a Japanese submarine up on the beach there. They finally drug that up and they cut it in half so you could see the inside workings on the thing. Had it set in front of the submarine base. Had a couple of liberties while I was there. I had this buddy Quinto Dulce from Lake Village, Arkansas. He liked to fight. He just loved to fight. We'd go on Liberty or something, he'd see a black man, and he'd say, "You're the blackest son of a bitch I've seen all day." And he always got us fight, and I never did see him whipped. We went to a place called Hula Rumba. It was a nightclub out there. And Quinto, he says, "I'd like to see a fight. I don't want to get in a fight, but I'd like to see one." He says, "I guess I'll start one." And that was the Hula Rumba place, was where the destroyer sailors and the submarine sailors used to go on their liberties. And they were dancing out there, and he walked out on the dance floor, and this guy was dancing by him, and he reached over and patted the girl on the fanny, and then he hauled off and smacked the sailor, and he said, "You shouldn't have done that, Buster." And the guy that was dancing with the girl, he said, "Thanks, Mac." And he started a fight. Everybody was choosing up sides, and Dulce and I sat up on the bar and watched it until we heard the MPs coming. Then we just walked out. It was a good fight. He was a good kid. We got drunk. They had I think Liberty or the curfew was at 9 o'clock. You had to be off the streets. Here about 11 o'clock, we decided we'd go back to base. You know, we were walking. The buses didn't run or anything else. And this MP picked us up. He had me by one arm and Dulce by the other arm, and he's walking us into base. And Dulce laughing like crazy. He says, "You hit him on that side, I'll hit him on this side." You know. So we did. He counted 3 and we whacked the guy. And we got back in the base all right. I don't know where he went. The next day they had the whole troop out in the parade ground. This beat up MP was trying to pick us out. Our sergeant there, he told us get up on the roof of the barracks and don't move until after this is over. There's some good times there. We'd go out on field maneuvers out there, and we'd come back through the plantations, and these guys would bust up pineapples and toss them to us, you know. And it was a nice time there. We went out to Midway from there, and oh heck. Midway's not much. I mean, back then there were no trees at Midway, just a couple ironwood trees over at the cable station. Everything else was scabioli bush, which is a very green bush with red wood parts of it. And a million birds, goony birds and moaning birds and fairy terns and Alaskan to Arctic terns, booby birds. All kinds of birds. It was something else. And, I had manned a machine gun out there. It was set on a post. We used to use it for anti-aircraft. It was a Browning water-cooled machine gun. And that's what my job was. And if you've ever seen pictures of the Battle of Midway, you see a big oil tank burning on it. Well, I was only about 30 yards from that oil tank.
Were you there during that battle?
Yeah. And
How long were you on Midway before the battle?
about 4 days.
4 days.
When we went into the Midway, I was on the USS Wright, which is a seaplane tender. And all they had on the ship was 4 PT boats they were delivering out to Midway. And when we got there, they had a submarine alert. And I was standing on the rail of the ship, or by the rail of the ship, and you can see these torpedoes coming to the ship, and it scared me. And they didn't wait for the pilot, they just put that thing as fast as they could get it going and headed for the channel through the reef. And they said that ship only had about 3 feet on each side to clear the channel. And we were loaded so light the torpedoes went under the ship and blew up against the reef. And I was quite a thrill. Watch them.
Wow.
You watch them things coming at you, you know, and you could see bubbles once in a while. You know, you could see a wake from it, because I guess those high-speed motors just sort of churn up a bubble trail or something. I thought, well, hell, war's over here, I'll go home quick. It was something to see. Got inside the channel and they reversed all the engines and put the helm over, and the ship just sat there going in circles, because you don't have a lot of room inside those reefs.
Yeah, you had some surgery, didn't you, before the...
Hemorrhoid surgery,
Yeah.
And they just got that taken care of when the battle thing started. they kicked us all out of the hospital and made us go to a battle station, and I sat in there for, well, what was it, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th of June, and they had to do it all over again for me after the battle was over. I was sore. I was in this little machine gun pit. It was just big enough to walk around in and still turn the machine gun. These little old water-cooled Brownings, and you had to turn so far and you had to go back around the other way, you know, so you wouldn't get the hoses caught up or anything. And,
Two-man crew?
yeah,
Yeah.
one man to keep loading ammunition. But they load it by boxes, you know, you just take a box and hang it on the side of the machine gun. I had this old airplane come at me, and you could see him strafing, I guess, for the oil tanks and stuff. And I could see the sand kicking up in front of me, you know. And so I laid that thing right on his spinner, and I started shooting. And I got him.
Yeah, right.
He went down, not too far behind the position, but when I could see them spouts coming up from the grass, I got down the bottom of that hole and looked up. My machine was going around like this, and he blew the water jacket off of it. And that was my first real combat in this. Well, it's like they say, you know, it's just pure terror most of the time.
Didn't you get quite the sunburn when you were at Midway?
I did get a sunburn, yeah,
I remember you telling us about that.
yeah. But, yeah, a bunch of us went out to the beach, and there's nobody around there, you know, they just, so we just strip off and go swimming. I laid on the beach and went sound asleep, and old man talk about a sunburn. It's against the rules of the Navy to get sunburned too. Only thing I was ever told about it though, I mean, I sweated out, but the Captain Buckner, he told me, he says, next time lay on your belly. Yeah. During the battle, the fighter planes that they had at Midway were all obsolete things, these old Rooster Buffaloes, and I think there's 24, 25 of them. They lasted about 30 minutes. And this artillery and aircraft battery that was right close to my position was Dog Battery, 6th Defense Battalion anyway. They took a direct hit in their range section, and so they sent a man down to the end of the island. The Japanese had come in over the end of the island, strafed down the length of the island, had a guy down there with a flag, and he waved the flag, and when the plane was coming, and the battery would just start firing, and all the fuses were set short, and just set up sort of like a wall of steel down there, and planes would fly into it and get chopped up, and all of a sudden the guy waved his flag, and they started firing, and this last Brewster Buffalo we had, he'd come flying through there and chopped the tail off the plane. He dropped into the lagoon out by where I was, and he swam ashore, and he wanted to know who was the commanding officer of that artillery anti-aircraft battery. I said, that's Captain Buckner, and my friend Cunningham, he worked for that captain in the fire control. He said that pilot went into the bunker there and says, who the hell is Captain Buckner? And Buckner says, here I am. And he said, the guy walked up and smacked him right in the nose. And he says, you broke my goddamn airplane. Yeah.
Those were Marine flyers too, weren't they?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the guy was named Park that was in charge of the pilots out there, Captain Park or Major Park, something like that. But they didn't last just about 30 minutes. They were no match at all for the Zero fighters.
Mm.
I got put in green for 30 days out at Midway too. They had me, I was trained for demolition work too, you know, we've got all that through Green's Farm. They had me disarming a mine that had washed ashore. And this, I heard somebody say, "Sergeant, I want to talk to you." Corporal, I was corporal then. Said, "I'd like to talk to you." And I said, "Just a minute." And he said, "I want to talk to you now." And I said, "Just a minute, sir." And he really got on me, and I pulled that fulminate tube out of the mine and threw it out, and it hit the water and blew up, you know, there at the beach. And he said something to me, and I said, "Kiss my ass, sir." So I got 30 days on bread and water. But I got full ration every 5th day. And it wasn't bad because of the full ration right then. We had the old iron rations, which is hardtack, corned beef, and tea. And I was getting bread and water, and so I didn't have to eat the hardtack. I don't know if I was better off the guys that were out or the guys that were in. I didn't have to work anyway.
Were you still a corporal when you got out?
Yes.
Oh, just checking.
That was quite a place. I think the highest place on Midway was about 6 feet above sea level at high tide. And, we had one, I don't know how Pacific, or the hurricanes or typhoons, whatever. But anyway, the storm come by, and I always thought that stuff about waves going plumb over an island was still stuff for movies. I found out it wasn't. I mean, it happened out there. I was there 30 days, and in August, we made the landing down the Guadalcanal, went down the Guadalcanal.
So you went right from Midway to Guadalcanal?
Yeah. That was an interesting place too. I mean, if you ever read the book Guadalcanal Diary, the old Tergascus he wrote, he was correspondent or writer of some kind. He was in the Corps, but he was one of those privileged characters that didn't have to do anything. And he wrote about all of us in our outfit. He was the same outfit that I was there for a long time. But he always wrote in a book about damn idiot Roy had clean dungarees and would comb his blonde curly hair before we go to combat. Well, that was me. He was right. I always wondered how in the heck I had clean dungarees all the time. I told the guys, hell, I'll wash them. You know, wash them in the ocean. It bleaches them out good.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you always try and keep clean?
Well, I figured if I was going to get shot and I had a bullet go through me, I'd just soon have